There was an interesting story in the media in Denmark yesterday where there was a mother of a 35-year-old, so she was maybe 65 or something like that. The boy died, the 35-year-old.
The what?
The boy died.
The boy, okay.
Because of a car accident.
Mm.
And this 65-year-old, that's what I find interesting about it's a tragic story, obviously, but she literally says to the camera, it's DR1, the main news channel in Denmark. She literally says, if he had, or the driver had, a self-driving algorithm or something that kicks in not to hit people on the street or whatever on the street, my son would be alive today. And that really hit me hard. Like, you look at this 65-year-old who doesn't necessarily understand self-driving. I was surprised in the first place that she would mention something like this. But I think there's just so many, we talk about jobs, but there's, so many applications where people, get tired or whatever. They make mistakes, basically. Yeah. They can be working together with AI to become the best version of themselves, if you will. A translator, a driver, whatever it is, right?
100%. I mean, there are things that are just not made for humans. We are not made to have constant attention for 8 hours when I'm driving. That's not what we're built for,
exactly.
And so these things should be taken over by staff that are made for working 8 hours without being tired, for instance. Yeah. And that's actually there's something also that, going back to the education topic, if you think about it, historically, as I said before, there are two industries that just don't scale. Healthcare and education, right? Okay, think about this. If the truck driver, okay? So in a future where there are no truck drivers, the people that would have chosen that job, they need to do something else, right? And we know that there's a shortage of nurses, of healthcare operators.
True. Some of those truck drivers might have gone into medicine, become a nurse, become a whatever.
Exactly.
Teacher. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that today's truck driver is gonna suddenly, start studying medicine.
Yeah.
That probably is not gonna happen. Yeah. But the next generation of potential truck drivers, they're gonna go somewhere else. So we have issues here in the world that we don't have enough people to tackle. Taking care of the elderly, again, nursing, all that stuff needs humans. So that's why I sometimes get pissed off when I see people that are building AI application to replace nurses. I'm like, come on, this is the job that you want to have humans to do.
Yeah.
Because if I'm sick, I want to talk to a human.
Yeah.
If I'm a human, I want to talk to humans. Yeah. And it's empathy. These are the things that make humans special.
Exactly.
Go make AI that can replace chip manufacturers. So just ideally, just picture all these things that humans are good at, picture all these things that robots are good at, and then build technology so that robots can do this and humans can do this. Otherwise, it's like if you have a football team and you're taking someone who plays defense and putting, to try to score. Yeah. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that's a general misconception with AI in general and technology as well. It's very binary, or people look at it very binary. Either you go full on technology, automate everything, or you go full on manual with humans basically at the front seat. And reality is always a mix. It's always the two working together and becoming the better version of themselves.
And that's what works best. I mean, it has been proven.
Yeah. And my girlfriend is actually a neurologist, or studying to become a neurologist. And there's been a lot of hype about IBM's Watson, replacing doctors and all these kind of things, especially within brain science, because the brain is so complicated. We as humans have not been able to understand the brain very well. And now a lot of people are saying, okay, with modern day AI and all these things, we can understand the human brain much better, because they can look at complications and complexities that we as humans are not able to do. But when you're a neurologist, basically you're giving medicine to somebody with Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, or whatever condition that you might have, going on in your brain. When you prescribe that medicine as a neurologist, you are always looking for all these different nuances, something that you've seen. So it's basically pattern recognition, but it's just so hard for a machine to do that kind of pattern recognition, because there's always outliers, always people doing differently, and we all look different. We all brought up different ways, so we have different ways of expressing ourselves. So somebody from Denmark would express themselves in one way where they have a certain condition. and somebody from Turkey will express themselves in another way. Danish people, for example, they're very reserved and not very sort of lively, whereas somebody in Turkey might be more lively. And those kind of nuances is very hard for a machine to replicate.
Yeah.
So I think, to your point, basically, when AI comes in, it's not a replacement of doctors, it's an amplifier of doctors.
100%.
But the same thing happens with Google and all that kind of stuff. Like nobody from Google knows how the search algorithm actually works. Like there's nobody you can point to in Google that can explain every single search result. The only thing that can do that is the AI that is powering the algorithm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just a matter of time before you see that for, I think, many other applications, I guess, not just search. But you mentioned GPT-3. And that's not general intelligence. It's much more, it's a parrot on steroids, as you say. But what about GPT 4, 5, 6, 10, 20, whatever it might be in the future?
So that's a very good question. And it's of course, it's hard to say. And there are two schools of thoughts. There's people, especially Google. I actually had a chance to have a chat with Jeff Dean, who's the top Google guy.
Nice.
I met him in a conference.
He's notoriously famous. There's a lot of Jeff Dean jokes, I think, within Google also.
His phone number is the whole pie.
Yeah.
All this kind of stuff. But no, he's also extremely chill and open. And one of the things he says is that Google still thinks that more data and more computing power is the key.
Right.
So just more. And I get it, because if you see, people thought that the performances were going to saturate the more you increase data and increase computing power. It doesn't look like it's happening.
Right.
So GPT-3 is just basically, they took GPT-2, which was amazing, by the way. Then they said, hey, more
power, more data.
More power, more data, more neurons, more everything. And hey, it works so much better than GPT-2. So GPT-4, there's some people that say eventually, if we get to something that is as complex as the human brain, let's say, as powerful, with as much data, we're gonna get to general AI. That's what some people think. I don't necessarily agree with this, because the way that these things work, the way that these algorithms are built by trying to optimize a metric, it's just doing pattern recognition. And pattern recognition, it's not the only thing that humans do, right? Humans work really well when you're outside of patterns. So the way that GPT-3 was trained, which is basically given a set of words, predict the next one.
Right.
It's not how we think, It's, again, if I make an example of something very weird, if I say, hey, Mark drank the book, something that doesn't make any sense, okay? Me and you will be able to imagine maybe a strange world where books are liquid, or maybe he blended it and then he drank it, and AI has never read anything like this, because, and for the way that it was built, so by predicting words, that are going to come next, since there's nothing in the world about Mark drinking books, it's just going to be completely like, I have no idea what is going on. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is, you can give it as much data as you can, since the logic behind it, the logic that allows these systems to learn, is still based on something that is fundamentally non-human, which is just predicting words one after the other. You're never going to get to the full spectrum of human intelligence.
But do you think we will ever reach a point? The example that I like to make always is, let's say you see a cat running through or running past the window here. The human mind will immediately recognize that as a cat, because the object that passed by the window is, let's say, black, moved in the way that a cat does, is more or less the same size as the cats that I've seen in the past. So immediately my human brain, your human brain, will come to the conclusion that that was a cat. Whereas if you point a camera to the window and an AI had to recognize the object as a cat, they would have to scan through the entire database of cats with the right angle in terms of lights and the movement of the cat and all that stuff. And then when there is a match from a previous picture that was taken of a cat that matches whatever picture was taken with the cat passing by the window, then the AI will conclude that that's a cat.
Yeah.
But do you think we'll ever reach a point where AI, GPT 20, whatever it might be, whatever organization is going to have a breakthrough, where the AI algorithm thinks more and more similarly to how our brains resonate and come to conclusions? Something that I always think about when I think about AI, because right now we are in the early days of AI. It's been around for a long time as a research field. Only recently we see it as a sort of a product that we can use in different applications, etc. But an elephant in the room for me is Elon Musk. He backed out of OpenAI when they became private. I can't remember the exact story there, but he wanted it to be open and democratic so everybody could use whatever algorithm. But now OpenAI is basically charging, maybe through Microsoft, I don't know, for their different applications and AIs. So I think, from what I understand, he backed out of OpenAI, but he's still working on Neuralink, the sort of brain-machine interface company, which to me is where AI goes bananas, and the symbiosis between human intelligence and artificial intelligence is going to go really crazy. So basically, a brain-machine interface is not, the hat that you put on and then they can read electrodes outside of your skull. It's actually this net that you can put underneath your skull, like surgically put it beneath your skull and then connect to your actual brain. So basically hooking up your brain to the internet. And today, as Elon Musk would like to argue at least, we are already cyborgs, right? We already use our phone to connect with our people. We already have these different profiles online that is sort of a representation of us. So it's only a matter of time before, our screens and computers become closer and closer to us, which is basically our brain. Our brain is a representation of us. And when you think about history, it's kind of crazy to see how computers have gone from being, the size of a room like this, and then smaller and smaller and smaller. And as they became smaller, they came closer and closer to our brains, our faces, basically. Then we have a laptop, then we had a phone. Now we have glasses soon that will be, connected with all kinds of electronics where we can do all kinds of things. Maybe sometime soon we will see contact lenses that also gets hooked up to the internet. And slowly but surely we'll start to see it closer and closer to our brains. When that happens, if that happens, Neuralink is trying to do it. Cornell, there's other companies that tries to build these brain-machine interfaces which are safe, reliable, and all that. And even though it connects to the internet, it's still not going to hack your brain, for example, like you can hack a computer. If that happens, and you start seeing human intelligence and artificial intelligence working in all kinds of ways, because now AI has straight access to your thoughts. Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever considered what will happen then?
Yeah, and I mean, what Elon Musk is trying to do with Neuralink is give, that's what scares me, read and write access to your brain.